This is a challenging conversation because for those who are still here, I know that you're like, this person died and they died too soon. How could a God cares for me let this happen? And you mean to tell me he's all knowing, so he knows how much this could affect me. That's what we're up against here. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. This episode is we back in the lab again with it.
Yeah. Back to the basics. Back to the basics.
Back to the basics. This episode right here, we'll just jump straight into it. Why bad things happen to good people, and then I think we can do a flip side of why good things happen to bad people. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those conversations, this is one of those questions that typically comes up in the life of an early believer, someone who wants to believe, or someone who has been believing for X amount of time, but then tragedy hits, right? Something happens in their life, and then they start questioning, well, shoot, if God is this, then why would that have happened? And that question, if they don't get a good answer for it, typically that's the thing that makes them revert all the way back. No, I can't go with that because I don't. If this thing could happen, then therefore God doesn't care. And so that's the topic we want to dive into today.
Well, let's start on the why bad things happen to good people, right? And we can hit it from a couple angles. So let's start off from God, because some people look at it like, look, I've been doing the right thing. I believe in God. I'm a Christian. All that. I work. I love God. I do everything I can do. Why do these things happen in my life? Why did I lose this person so close to me? Why did I get this terminal illness? Why are my kids not listening to me or misbehaving, all this? Why is that? If God loves me, why is he allowing that to happen in my life? Well, first of all, let me say this. We don't always know. Okay, we don't always know. So it's not like an answer you can write down and say this. But one thing we do know is that God is in control. So, and he talks about in his word, sometimes he will rain on the just and the unjust. And when we put ourselves in proximity sometimes, this is just one of the scenarios where things are in a bad situation. I use myself as, growing up, I never forget, not running with the police, but the police made it clear to me, okay, if you're around somebody that has drugs on them and we take that person down and you with them, and let's say you all in the car together, you all going down together. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm a good person, right? But now I've been around the wrong company. So now I'm paying the price for being around the wrong company.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one scenario. Another scenario is that even though something it might be bad at the moment, if you hold on, those bad things can help strengthen you for something that's coming down the road that you're going to be prepared for, that you're going to get rewarded from. And I know sometimes people are like, well, sickness, how can you say that? Well, you know what? God can decide to get you through that sickness and make you mentally stronger through that sickness, where you appreciate life a lot more, where you actually have more urgency around what you want to do in life. You wind up accomplishing a whole lot more because now you realize, hey, life is not promised. So that's just a couple scenarios.
Well, I can tell you right now that there's somebody who is, well, shoot, does that mean that God is giving me the sickness to teach me something?
You know what? And actually, it's a great question, because God is in control. God allows it. Did he give it to you, or did he allow it, is the question. So if I smoke a pack of cigarettes every day, I'm doing something I know that's harmful to my body, that can lead to cancer, known to lead to cancer. And when cancer pop up, do I say God gave it to me? No, I smoke cigarettes. Now, I can live a clean life and not smoke cigarettes and all that, and I can still get cancer. Now, did God allow it to happen? Yes, he did. Can I say he did it for ABC reason? I don't know. It might become clear at one point. But God is in control. So he allows everything to happen. He allows it, and he has an answer for it, I guess is what I'm getting at. Don't know if I directly answered your question, but in some cases, we put it on ourselves. We put ourselves in a situation.
So no, I think so. Because here's the thing. Let's just use that same example about the person who smokes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is, it didn't matter how many Sunday services they went to.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how many verses they could recite. It doesn't matter how much they gave to the poor. It doesn't matter how many old ladies they helped across the street. You smoked enough and it messed you up.
Mm-hmm.
There was a cause and effect to it.
Yep.
And so the thing is, I think there's a really important touch point on this, and it's just the fact that there are real laws in place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a law versus an option. The law is something that will happen no matter what, without fail. Okay, it's there. We go with the law of gravity. Good, easy example for everybody because you know exactly how it works.
you dropped his phone. It's
going to come down. You jump off a building, you will come down. No matter what happened else, no matter how good of a person you are, that is the result of a law in place. And so it's the same thing that applies here. And now just because you might not have done anything, somebody else might have done something that affects you. And because there's laws in place, that's the result.
Yeah. I mean, let's use smoking. Stay there for a minute. You might not even be a smoker, but you're around secondhand smoke. So that it can happen. The other piece too, I think, and I think about genetics. Because hey, my family. I've talked about prostate cancer before. The thing that it runs in my family. The men in my family have it, genetically disposed to it. All right. So me knowing that makes me go get checked up. Makes me kind of work to be prepared. And so did God give it to me? No, God allows it to happen. And it's genetically, so talking about the laws again, the laws of genetics, your parents, you got their genes. So you're going to pick up some of their traits that's going to be similar. So that law is in play. You can't fight it. You can't. It's just going back to the law piece. So I bring it up to say that you're absolutely right. The laws are hard and fast. Law of gravity, genetic.
Law of sin and death.
Law of sin and death. And I think that's where we want to go with this too. If you go against what God's law is, which is His word, then it's gonna hold true. You're gonna have some things happen in your life that you're not gonna like. Okay, no matter what the outside look like.
One thing, I think this is a challenging conversation because for those who are still here, I know that you're like, well, if this person died, and they died too soon.
Yeah.
How could a God you claim that He loves me, that He cares for me, that He hears my prayers, that He answers my prayers, and He let this happen?
Yeah.
And you mean to tell me He's all knowing, so he knows how much this could affect me, how many nights I'd be crying myself to sleep, how much instability now was introduced to my life because of this thing happening. You tell me that your God, who loves me, allowed this to happen. That's what we're up against here.
No, it is nice, and I'll just use another. So, I had a great niece. She died at 6 months. Okay. It was a very difficult time for the family. And I remember it had to be about, man, it's amazing. It had to be over I'll tell you how long it was ago. It was 17 years ago. And I remember my nieces and nephews who were at the time, they might have been 9. No, they were 12 and so forth. And they asked the same question. They was like, Uncle Rodney, why did God let this happen? She hadn't done anything. She was 6 months. How why? And I'm asking the same questions myself at the time, right? But I will tell you what the Holy Spirit told me at that time was this, and this is what I told them. We all have a time. Her time was the 6 months she was here on this earth. And I said, we don't know that her dying could trigger someone else becoming a doctor who might do something else. It's a chain reaction that God has a plan that we don't even see. And because we only see this piece of it, we can only look at it from this view. And, and I'm not trying to say you find good out of death, but at the same time, when we talk about what God don't look like, he don't look at things like this. He look at things like this. It's like a parent who has a child and has a baby. A parent's not gonna let the baby just crawl off the edge of a step. Okay, they know to catch them there, but they might allow them to fall, or do something so they'll learn next time. But the point is that you grow, and you allow certain things as a parent to happen with your kids so they can grow. Death is a hard one, but the point though is that sometimes, and how many times do you hear about someone pass? I lost my mom or I lost my dad, and it motivates that individual to greatness. Now, sadly, the opposite can happen too. It can take somebody into deep, deep depression.
Yep.
Too. I think the real question comes in is, where's God at in your life though? Is going to determine how you make it through those things.
When it comes to this, there's an answer to it that actually isn't the most pleasant to come to grips with. There's the side of it is like, it could be used for you to, be motivated, and, people start organizations. I mean, Black Legacy Advancement Coalition. If you don't know about that, you can Google them. But essentially, the organization was started because, the founder's close friend, ended up dying. And from that, he was inspired to go make sure that kind of thing wasn't going to happen again, at least by what he could do in his own power, right? Yeah. And so, a whole lot of people have been helped by that particular movement, but still there's the question of, okay, well, why did it have to happen? Right? And so it's like, there's these situations that come up. And so it's like, for us, I guess the undesirable question or the undesirable response to it, I believe, is just the fact that you're not going to know the reason why everything happens. God is the only one who can actually see how every piece plays on the board.
Together, yep.
I mean, think about the fact that, from Genesis all the way up to Matthew, all these different things had to happen before Jesus actually was born. This person had to meet that person. This person had to mess up, and that person ended up dying, which led this person to meet them. And then this person became king. Now these people all have to actually get out of here. And so all these different things happen. Then boom, Jesus is born. And now the situation is exactly the way it needs to be for his death, his resurrection. So we all could be saved.
Yeah.
If we did it prematurely, that's a problem. If we waited too long, that's a problem. It's a completely different situation in that case.
It is.
And so God can see the entire board. And so it's like, well, shoot, why did this happen? You might never know. And it might not be something that, makes you want to become the leader of X, Y, and Z organization. Yeah. It just might not. You might never know the answer to that.
You might not. And that's the thing. And I'm glad you're saying that, because we're not God. And the point though, I think, what you're making here too, because we talked about why does bad things happen to good people. We define good in our own terms.
Yeah.
And don't mean that people aren't good, but we say that because if we are good, we feel like we deserve good things to always happen to us.
I did this, therefore God owes me this.
Yeah. And I guess think about that. If everything good happened to me because I did good, what would be motivating me to do good? would it be because I just expect to get a good payoff? Or, I mean, this is just speaking from a Christian standpoint, or it's because I love God? It becomes transactional in a sense. Because if I do a good thing with a bad heart, I expect to get a good thing back because that's the transaction. I got to, trials, and, 1 James talks about welcoming trials. These hardships that we go through help make us stronger, whether we want to believe it or not. Losing somebody hurts. Trust me. Those who've lost people, we all know, parents, siblings, children, all that stuff. It hurts. But man, you don't come out of it the same way. You either come out of it stronger or weaker.
God didn't create us to be the orchestrator and the ultimate overseer of life.
Mm-mm.
That's not our role.
No.
There's certain things that you need. He called you to do what he called you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so things are going to happen around you. Things might happen to you.
Mm.
But the reality is, as a part of the kingdom, right, as a member of this kingdom, as a soldier in the kingdom's army, you have a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means no matter what happens, are you still doing what you need to do to complete what God called you to do?
Yes.
And so in that context, there's things that you need to be doing on a regular basis, regardless of what happens out in the world.
Yeah. And as we talk, one thing I want to mean, because I know people looking at it like, well, man, why should I follow God and be committed if bad things will happen to me? And we're not.
That's a good question.
No, it is a good question.
I hope people ask that.
They should. And I want to answer, at least for me, it's like being obedient and following God gives me peace. Okay, and what I mean by that is like, okay, I know I'm doing what he's called me to do. Now, when something happens that I don't expect, or people call bad, I'm still trusting. I got peace to know, okay, he's gonna get me through this because he's gotten me through it before. And that's where that building the strength come in, is what I'm saying. Because if I'm just following God because I expect him to give me good things when I'm obedient, then I go back to it. I'm not following because I love him and I want to follow him and I want to be obedient. I'm following him because I expect to get a payoff from following him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A transactional payoff. Right.
And there are plenty of benefits to being a Christian.
No doubt.
I mean, just the fact that, a lot of things can happen, but fruits of the Spirit, you can have peace. You can have joy. You can be peaceful in the craziest situations in life because you believe in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you become almost superhuman in a sense because of the fact that you are not swayed by what happens in this world anymore because you serve a God that is greater.
Yeah.
You have faith now. You believe that there is a future that is for your good and not evil. You believe that no matter what trial or test or obstacle or challenge might come your way, you are equipped enough because of the God inside of you to overcome anything that comes in front of you.
Yep.
And so I believe that faith in God makes you a different caliber of person, more useful, more successful, more prosperous, because I cannot be swayed by the weather.
No. You don't have, so not anxiety, not that you won't have it, but you won't, you can't hold on to it because you trust in God.
You have a choice.
You have a choice. Faith and fear can't operate in the same atmosphere. So the more you trust God, the less fearful you're going to be. And the more you trust him is the more confident you are in what you're doing. Because when you're doing it for him. So I love everything you said. I guess we said something. We said a couple of things. Why bad things happen to good people. I think we talked about that a little bit. We talked about how, God allows things to happen, but he has his reason we can't explain his big plan. But man, why do good things happen to bad people? And people who don't know, and I'm not saying it, the bad people, let's say bad people, I'm not going to quantify it. We know what bad people look like.
The ones who got the long hat and they're shaded and
they wear all black, but
right, and they got the pointy noses and everything.
Yeah,
No, so bad things happen to good people, essentially by the same laws.
Oh,
The reality
good
is-
things happen to bad people. I mean,
Or good things happen to bad people because a lot of the times, I mean, we see it all the time. There's billionaires who do corrupt things. There are multimillionaires corrupt things. There are people who are incredibly influential leaders in government who do corrupt things to mess up a lot of people's life. And it seems like that all of this great stuff is coming to them. And we find out, whether it be you just can blatantly see by the things they're doing on a day-to-day basis, or you find out over time, oh, wait a minute, that person was terrible. And so we think that, you know, because all this good stuff has happened to this person, it was like we get this misconception that it's like, oh, well, shoot, maybe that might be a better route to take than this whole God stuff because it looks like there's more benefits on that side. Here's the reality. A lot of good things happen to bad people because oftentimes, and I know this is going to hurt the feelings of some of the Christians out there, is like we don't actually know how to apply the laws that God put in the book that we're supposed to be living by.
Yeah.
And so because some of the bad people know how to actually make a product or a service that is valuable and necessary and needed by other individuals and can distribute it on a global basis, they end up reaping the benefits of the law of sowing and reaping. They not.
Yeah. Perfect way to put it. It's so the same laws are there. Now the question is, you know, and even in that case, they took God out of it, but it's the same law, same principle. And
God didn't say that, oh, if you're just only for good people, will the laws apply?
No, he didn't say that.
We go back to gravity again. No matter who's jumping off the building, they going down.
Yeah, and for those who watch, there's a payment and punishment to those who are bad. Don't get me wrong. There's judgment, and those individuals might have the outward. And you said, I think it's so many words. They might have all the money. They might have all the toys. They might have all these different things. But we talked about peace and joy earlier. That they don't have.
And this life is a lot shorter than you think. It ain't even close to eternity.
Oh no. I mean, for God, 1,000 years is a day. For 1,000 years of God is a day to us. Maybe, who knows? Yeah, it's like
life.
Yeah,
gone. Beginning, end. That was all of it.
Yeah.
And so our, again, narrow perspective of the situation makes us believe things that aren't accurate.
Yeah.
That person right there, you don't know what their real life is like.
You
don't know about the downfall that's coming in the next year.
Yeah, or even how much stress they're under. You know, or I mean, how often do you see and hear like some of these people, they got everything, they're killing themselves. They so worried about chasing another dollar. You know, so they worried about somebody's gonna take what they got.
Of course.
That's
stress.
That's stress.
No matter how many pictures you see of them on their boat or their jet, or how many videos that they might be in, it's like you can't sleep at night because you don't know if someone's gonna be there with a gun over your head tomorrow.
Oh yeah, or is your right hand person really your right hand person? Are they trying to take your business? You know, all this stuff. How often are you at home? What type of life are you living?
The reality is you keep seeing them on this boat and doing all this fancy stuff because they actually have no peace with the people around them. That they have to go do these things because they can't just sit with a wife and be happy.
Yeah.
They haven't experienced happiness since they were a kid.
Yep. And remember, we're talking about people who lack that relationship with God.
Yeah.
So we're not saying you can't be rich and be a Christian. You can. But you don't worship the money at that point. The money's just a byproduct of how God's blessed you. And you, in theory, you should be using what you have to actually spread his word and do his work. That don't mean he won't reward you.
Let's talk about a point that was made a little bit earlier. You know, people misunderstand, or the love of money, or money is the root of all evil. And it's like, okay, let's take the young rich man who was talking to Jesus. The reality is, when Jesus was like, "Hey, give it all away and come follow me," he was taught that was a heart check. It didn't have a whole lot to do with his actual money.
No.
It was a heart check because the reality is if all of your security, if your trust is in the dollar, then that means that you don't trust in God.
Exactly. No, it's a great example, because to the point, and Jesus knew that. He did all these different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that money was the one thing he was holding on. It was his God.
Yeah. And so, of course, money can be awarded or given to a believer, and now you've got peace with it.
Yeah. But I think that's one reason why the word talks about money so much, because money has that capability of becoming someone's God so easily. Mm-hmm. So that's why that warning is in there. But to the point we're making, there's plenty of people that are rich, that are Christians, and they're doing great things with it. And I look, it's companies like Hobby Lobby is one of the companies, owned by Christian. They close on Sundays, I believe, and they taken the success of that and just created outreach. And it's just, I was listening to them talk about on the radio, their story. And they're like, it's not about them just becoming rich and getting more money. So how do we move the kingdom forward? A
different mission.
A different mission. And I mean, I brought this one time where this one pastor was talking about a member of his church who he was very affluent. He didn't even realize it, right? And he didn't know who the guys was. And he saw his picture on the Fortune 500. He's like, what? This guy go to our church, And he wound up talking to the guy, and he heard the guy speaking, and he said, him and his wife, they actually live on their 10% and they give 90%. The thing was that their 10% was more than enough, and they still lived a great life, but they gave God 90%. And I was like, that's my mission. I want to be able to do that.
So, wrapping it up,
and it's. I mean, we covered a lot of ground, and I hope we put enough meat on this so people can kind of get it. But I think you had mentioned a moment ago as we was closing here, why bad things happen to good people, and why good things happen to bad people. And you were, it's worth mentioning again how you talked about the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reality is that in both of those situations, there's laws in place, right? And again, we won't know everything. We can't see the full picture. We don't know how everything is supposed to interweave together. We don't know how it's supposed to end. We don't know how it started. And so because of these things, it's so important to focus on what your role is in it. And so it's like, because there's these laws, we know that when you trust in God, when you do what he says to do, then there's the cause and effect relationship to it. If he said this is what's going to happen when this happens, when you do this is what's going to happen. Yeah. You can bet on that. You can trust in it. And so I would go ahead and lean more into those. And if you don't know them, I would dig into the word and find them out so that you can have those things working for you. And for anybody who's trying to figure out why this thing happened, or why did that thing happen, or well, what does this mean then? I would say you should probably want to stop using mental energy to try to figure everything out, because it's just not your role.
Yeah, you read my mind on that. I think it's a rabbit hole that you can lose yourself in, and it doesn't mean you don't deal with your emotions around it. It doesn't mean that you don't kind of acknowledge that, hey, I'm dealing with this. This is a struggle for me. But to stay there and to keep trying to figure out, what you're saying is that you want God to tell you, or you think you know better than God. And look, God ain't gonna tell us nothing we ain't supposed to know. And who are we to tell God something? So it's gonna eat you. To me, it becomes a cancer almost. I mean, I've seen it in people, and those who have been strong believers, and then all of a sudden a tragedy hit their lives, and they will get totally away from God. And so gotta be careful.
I think wrapping this up here, I think there's a mentality, again, and this is not the motivational episode.
No, not at all. This is a very serious topic. Wait, go ahead.
There's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were in the book of Daniel, and they were thrown into the fire, the fiery furnace.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened was essentially they just said they said the reason they ended up in this fiery furnace because the king at the time, there was some laws in place, and he said everybody is supposed to be worshiping these guys that I've set up, and you're not allowed to be doing no other worship. And they said, I'm not about to bow down to that. And so the king was pretty much, if your God's going to save you, then cool, I guess you're going to end up in the fiery furnace. And what I think was so profound in this story was what they said just before they ended up in the fire was, whether our God saves us or not, we ain't standing for that. Now, when you can get to that, when you can get to that situation, to that mentality, I believe you have matured all the way to where God wants you to be, so that he can completely use you for what he's called you to do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And their thing was like, hey, if God decided that they should be burned, they were fine, because they knew God had them covered that way too.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's a good place to end. God got us covered in the good and the bad.
He's got us.
He got us.
So,
yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. I hope that you got something from this. I really, and if you are one of those people who's still thinking, well, I don't know if I can come back and really believe, I would say, pray about it. One, think over the things that were spoken in this particular episode. And then when you go into the Bible and kind of really start to meditate on what the word says, what your purpose is, what your role is, how things are, kind of how things have operated. And he's told us it's going to operate in this particular way. When you start to meditate on these things, I want you to kind of ask yourself, is staying stuck on that thing benefiting your life? Is it helping you to move forward? Have you been more valuable to the world? Have you been more valuable to yourself by being stuck on that? And if you can say no, then I want you to think about going back into the word and find another path.
Yeah, it's there, and we're not trying to make it easy here. It can be a journey.
Won't be.
It won't be. No, it won't be. Before we slip off into a whole nother topic, but we're gonna go in there. So, and we thank you for joining us. But we do want to invite you. Hey, if you are in the Southfield metro area, we want to invite you to come out and join us to serve as the Freedom in Christ Ministry. We are located at 28202 Franklin Road. Hey, come join us. Also, for men out there, we have Men 2.0, the second Saturday every month, at the same location at 10 a.m. And for ladies, because we know some ladies are watching, we have Lift. Living in Freedom and Truth, which happens the first Saturday every month. So look, we're at the Freedom Center doing it, serving God, coming together, and we want you to come check us out.
Yes, sir. Hey, if you have not subscribed already to the channel, go ahead and do that and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every week when we have a new episode. And with that, we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.
Peace.